Greetings and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I am Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, publisher of chalkboardnews.com. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related to K-12 education across the country. Joining me again today is Brendan Clary, Chalkboard's K-12 editor. How are you, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Dan. How about yourself?
I am doing well, thank you. We are recording this on Monday, October 9th. Brendan, in an episode of Education in Focus from last week, we talked about this relatively new post-COVID phenomenon of something called credit recovery and credit advancement courses. Credit recovery allows students to retake classes they have previously failed, allowing them to graduate on time. But there's an emerging concern that students who are able to take these courses and tests remotely are easily able to cheat. In fact, social media accounts on platforms like Instagram and TikTok even offer to complete student homework for them. Other homework is available on Telegram or Discord, which are instant messaging platforms. Brendan, on TikTok, Chalkboard saw a number of accounts that offered to complete these courses for students for a fee. You reached out to some of these platforms. What did you hear back?
Yeah, well, the issue with these platforms is that they are, kind of operating in secret. There's a lot of different ways that, there are Telegram servers. Basically, the prize is not being seen, not being understood. So the TikTok, when I reached out to them, I asked them about some specific accounts, and they shut down the accounts that I asked about. So I included some for reference of, these are the accounts that are offering to do students' coursework for a fee. And so they shut down those accounts. So that it's telling, right, if you're shutting down an account. But the platform declined to comment specifically on what its policies are in terms of academic integrity, in terms of honesty, those kinds of things. But these are, all over. There's still a whole bunch of them up. I was able to review some today. There's a lot of different accounts, which I'm not naming just so that, you can't go and find them. But there's a lot of different accounts out there that are asking. A lot of them are like homework help and sort of generic like that. And that's something that they kind of advertise more broadly. But then when you click on it, you'll see like they have a lot of positive reviews. It's almost like a business. So it is a pretty interesting sort of a maybe quasi-legal, are there actual laws that are in place to shut this down? Maybe not, but in terms of policies that, are on the books or should be on the books about academic integrity, it's sort of an interesting, like this is a new intersection maybe of what these social media companies are having to deal with, right, of academic integrity. And what you mentioned too is credit recovery and some of these online courses have been around a while, but they're everywhere now after the pandemic. And so there is sort of a burgeoning market perhaps for these sorts of accounts, which I saw dozens of them on TikTok, and there's a whole bunch on Instagram as well. And I reached out to Meta, the owner of the platform of Instagram, and I didn't hear back from them, but there are still accounts that you can go to and find, homework help or answer keys. So there are some accounts that I saw that have like a complete answer key set for Edmentum, which is an online courseware provider. I've written a lot about Edmentum after a former teacher, public school teacher, flagged that courseware is being easy to game, being vulnerable to students copying and pasting answers into Google. And that's another thing that I saw in my reporting, Dan, is, students are still able to, if you copy and paste specific questions to tests, as this teacher flagged in the video, you can find those still. And they come up on a website called Brainly, which is a homework help sort of website, and that's how it's billed. But you get the direct answers, right? So I reached out to Brainly and I said, how do you guys monitor? How do you, they have what's called like an academic, an honor code, and that's what they have on their website. And so they pointed to that and said, we have an honor code, which does prohibit students from copying and pasting questions directly off of tests or quizzes, right? And I said, how do you enforce this? And they didn't respond to that part of the question of, how do they enforce this? And I also asked how many violations reports they get every year. How many students do they have complaining that there are test questions publicly available? And they didn't respond about that either. But they did, point to, they basically kind of said this is like looking at a book if you were in a classroom, 10, 15 years ago. Like it's like having your book open in class. The difference, I think, and this is what some other critics have pointed out, is that if you're taking a class at home, sort of all bets are off, right? And who's to say that you're actually the one who's even looking at the book, right? And so we're kind of at an intersection here of, there's a lot of different things, different ways that you can use this technology. I'm not sure administrators are aware of them. I'm not sure that teachers are always aware of them. In some of the servers that I found, it's pretty elusive in terms of how students are able to get tests, questions over to the quote tutors, that they call themselves tutors, but it's pretty clear that they're doing the work for students on behalf of students, and sometimes even in monitored classes. So ways around, and I don't want to get too specific here, just in case I don't want to encourage anybody, but there are specific ways around certain technologies that you can use to have somebody else do the work for you or get them the answers to quizzes and tests in real time. And so it's a very wide range. There's another one that's like an AI powered tutor. So you pay $17 a month or $60 for the year, and you can get access to AI powered basically answers, on demand for everything. So it's a widespread issue, but we're seeing it, across all fronts basically.
So only a minute or so left, Brendan. Quick question followed by a follow-up question, but keep in mind the time that we have left. So you reached out to these social media platforms, including TikTok. TikTok said it wouldn't comment on its policies related to this, but you went back after the fact, after they acknowledged they got your communication, and you found these sites taken down. So they responded to that.
Yeah, so they did not give me a comment in the end. So they did not give me a comment, but I did let them know that this was my deadline. I also talked with them on the phone. And so they were aware of the issues that I was looking into with these accounts, and then they removed every single one that I referenced. They pulled them down. So those videos are no longer available, but there are some accounts that those videos were posted by. Those are still up. The videos are just down. And then there's also some accounts that were taken down wholesale.
Okay, last question, and then we have to wrap up. So cheating's been going on since schools were first constructed, I think, probably student cheating. But in the age of the internet, particularly as you mentioned, post-COVID-19, where remote learning, of course, was heavily promoted. Now they've got these course recovery classes that students can take online. So it's just gotten much more prevalent. But why does it matter to students? They don't learn, and they don't get prepared for later in life. Tell us.
Yeah, no, as some of the reporting that I've done on this, the credit recovery aspect in particular, the online credit recovery can hurt students, long term. Like if you're not learning the stuff that you need to learn in order to function in society, in order to be able to do your job well, it does have, negative consequences for years, even after graduation, right? If you're not learning the things. And so I'm not just saying that. That's researchers that I've talked to and studies that I've, reported on that show that these online credit recovery courses have actual tangible real life harms for students. And so that's what the argument is. But unfortunately, they're cheaper. It's a lot easier to have an online courseware provider than it is to have, so many more teachers in a school district. And some school districts seem like they're kind of cornered into that. And, it's sort of the state that we're in right now, right?
Well, thank you for your insight into this, Brendan, and great reporting. I know you'll have some more reporting on this exact same topic later as you continue to dig into it at chalkboardnews.com, but we are out of time. Listeners can keep up with this story, as I mentioned, and all stories related to K-12 education at chalkboardnews.com. For Brendan Clary, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening.